Hi, and welcome to the SAN Client Advisory Services webinar series. This is webinar 1, Growing Advisory and Consulting Services. We're thrilled that you're here. We know how hard it can be for accountants and bookkeepers to develop and launch new services to their clients. So we partnered with industry leader Boomer Consulting to build the solution around client advisory services that is really going to help you remain relevant and take better care of your clients and add more value to their services, to the services you provide them. We've got today on our call Gary Boomer, founder of Boomer Consulting, accounting today's top 100 most influential, inside public accounting's top consultant year over year, CPA practice advisor, top 25 thought leader, a former member of the AICPA Council, and really passionate about your success and future readiness as an accounting professional. Also on the call today, we've got Ed Kless, who is a radio host and podcast host of The Soul of Enterprise, director of Sage Accounting Solutions. He is also a top 100 in Accounting Today award winner year over year. Expert in pricing and packaging and change management, a senior fellow at the VeraSage Institute. And these two are good friends of mine and are going to have an interesting dialogue to help you start to understand the context of the SAN Advisory Services Program. And without further ado, I've got Gary and Ed.
Well, thank you, Thomas. It's a pleasure being here. And I'll just start off with a quote from Dan Burrus, author and futurist, that I know Thomas and I both think a lot of. And the first time I heard about Dan was probably 5 or 6 years ago through Tom Hood at the Maryland Society of CPAs. And Dan has this quotes that clients really don't know what they want in the future. So we've got to be better leaders in providing those services. And that's part of what this program is all about. How do we become more efficient with the services we're offering so that we can offer additional higher value services? Ed, what's your thoughts on this quote?
Yeah, I love this quote, Gary, because it's reminiscent of it's an apocryphal story. I don't think Henry Ford actually said this, but he is purported to have said at one point that if I had given my customers what they wanted, I would have given them a faster horse, right? The more contemporary parallel is, Steve Jobs providing an iPhone, and we didn't know we wanted iPhones until Steve Jobs provided iPhones for us, right? This notion of a smartphone. And I think there's clearly an echo in this in Burrus's work. And the huge challenge, of course, is for today's accounting professional to be able to take that leadership position, to not just say, yeah, we're going to be here, we're going to do your compliance work, all of the stuff that we've done in the past to keep you out of jail. I'm being facetious here, but we're also going to give you some insight into what's going on today, and in using your language, foresight into the future. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But what our position is, and why we hope you're on this webinar series and will ultimately come to the workshop, is so that you can begin to be not only just the best accounting professional you can be, but also a leader of businesses, of small businesses, as we make this shift into the future.
Very good. Thank you. Well, I think it is a shift, or it's a transformation. And if you think back to 1992, kind of the formation of the internet, it was the internet of information. Today, it's more the internet of value. How do you create value? And one of the biggest challenges we have is not with the skill sets or the tool sets that are required. It's more the mindset. How do we get a future focus rather than keep the status quo of the past? And I like how this is depicted, because it does show opportunity and a pretty future for those that want to take advantage of it. But if you're going to hang on into the past, I think it's going to be more commoditization, trying to work longer hours, trying to convince people that they should do the same. And that maybe is a situation that just you're not going to be able to attract talent or clients to that. Ed, your thoughts?
Yeah, and what I love about this slide, Gary, this notion of, and I think you're right, mindset on this is so important, and it's the mindset of the accounting professional today that we're addressing. You know, I also like that this slide is really a reflection of two things that are going on. Not only do we want to help transform the accounting professional of today, whether they be an accountant or a bookkeeper or it's anybody in this space, but ultimately we're doing this so that you as an accounting professional can begin to transform your customers and clients, because they need to begin to do that as well. And the only way that you're going to be able to be this leader of this transformation for them is for you to become one yourself. The first person that you have to convince and understand is you. And that's where this notion of mindset comes in to play. If you're, just happy to quote, run out the table on the last maybe, 2 years or so of your career, that's great. And we got no problem with that, but this program probably isn't for you. But if you're looking out plus 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years into the future, this transformation is going to be something that you're going to have to be a part of, or as the slide shows, unfortunately, be left in the dust, so to speak.
Well, I think just continue on. You're doing a good job of answering the question why they really need to transform.
Yeah, because things aren't staying still. What was it? You and I both attended the AICPA Engage conference, and one of the quotes that I remember that Barry Melanson talked about up on stage was, "Hey, listen, the speed of change is never going to be slower than it is now, right? And it's only going to intensify. It's only going to quicken." And we've noticed that. We've noticed that over the last 2 or 3 decades that change continues to increase and get faster. And whereas it used to be there was maybe only one technology that we were on the lookout for, now there are 3 or 4. There's blockchain, there's AI, there's driverless vehicles. All of these are in a sense converging, but also diversifying into all of these other wonderful things that we can imagine in this future. And look, unless we begin to transform ourselves, we're never going to be there to be able to transform our clients and customers either. So we need to be future ready to, again, sustain that profitability, because profit is about this future growth.
Absolutely. And I think oftentimes we can get caught in our own situation and just our mindsets about us rather than the profession and the future and the next generation. But I would remind partners my age and those partners that are getting closer to retirement that somebody's going to have to pay that deferred comp payment. Somebody's going to have to pay that succession plan out. And if you're not future ready, that's going to have a negative impact on the values. So there's reason for all of us to work together and help our clients and help our own firms. I like to use the term, drink your own champagne. Don't just do it for your clients, do it for your own firm, and you'll be a much better advisor and consultant to your clients. So we've developed what we call the continuum of value. This is a big part of the program, and we talk about this up front, and most of us that have been in the accounting profession have been involved with transactional and compliance work over the years. Today, now we're talking about playing through the line. How do we get to the performance and consulting services out there? Because most accountants are capable of doing this. They may not have the time. So to speed this process up, how do we get that data to flow? And these are data connectors. And we also have knowledge connectors. You have to have the knowledge and the insight in order to be able to really provide advisory services and consulting services. And so that's why we call these accelerators, because if you don't have accurate and real-time information, it's hard to be a good CFO. It's hard to do strategic planning. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, you see that you're limited by capacity in the transactional and compliance work. How many of you are having trouble finding people today, or finding the right people and training them with the right skills? As you move to the right, it's more about capability. And I think we can take this a step further, and I'll have Ed kind of explain his thoughts about how this is going to impact you and your firm. And this slide is very similar, only it talks about digital and business. Ed, your thoughts?
Yeah, I really love this slide for a number of reasons, but the first is that it really does talk about this in terms of this step progression upward across multiple axes. It's not just we're moving one thing to the next. No. There's more than one thing that you've got to adjust in your organization in order to make this work. I'm reminded of a friend of mine, brilliant strategic consultant named Tim Williams, he's in the advertising space, but he talks about the difference in advertising between logic work and magic work. And that the logic work is the stuff that we have to do in order to get to the magic work. And the same thing is true in accounting professionals today. There's the transactional and compliance work. It's not that doesn't have to be done. It still does, still has to be done and has to be right. But there are so many systems that we have that are in place that will allow that stuff to happen with less and less worry as to whether or not it even is correct, right? So that we can jump to this magic work, this performance and advisory piece, so that it's not just no longer about providing, again, the hindsight of what happened yesterday, but the insight into what's going on in the business today, and of course the foresight that's into the future. And I know one of the complaints that we hear over and over again is, well, my customers don't want this. My clients aren't ready for that. They just want to make sure that their tax return is right. And every time I hear that, I don't know about you, Gary, but it makes me tense up a little bit, because I know, have you even had the conversation with what they want with regard to insight and foresight? And I don't think that they really have. They certainly do need the basic compliance stuff, but as we know, in 2019 for tax returns in the year 2018, there's going to be a doubling roughly of the ones that just require the standard deduction. So just think about the reduction in compliance work that's going to be going on just because of that in one area, which is tax returns. We've got to be capable of bringing advisory and consulting work to our customers, our client organizations, and this is where the shift has to start to take place now.
And that's where the automation is really commoditizing and eliminating much of the work that, as CPAs, we've done in aggregation of data. Now we really need to use that data for predictive purposes. And I think you summed that up very well. We'll move on to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I mention this because most of you took Psychology 101, but really what we're looking at are wants versus needs. Now, clients need something because of compliance, but what they really are talking about here is, what do they want? And you might talk to this, Ed, about how transformation is really at the top of the hierarchy.
Yeah, it sure is. Although I was reminded this week that the new Maslow's hierarchy includes one at the bottom that, we would traditionally think of it as food and water, but it's now internet access. I was down for about 2 hours earlier this week, and I'm like, well, I can't do anything. But no, in all seriousness, no, I think that there's great knowledge in these two slides and the comparison between the two, and this notion that what people want today sometimes is more discretionary time. They want to be able to they don't want to have to work 60 or 80 hours a week. And this is at two levels, right? This is at the firm level, and it's also at the customer's level too. And what we want to be able to do is help them leverage the existing technology, but also our knowledge to allow them to get some of this discretionary time back that can then increase the deepness of the relationships that they have, and also a sense of purpose in the organization. One of the most brilliant things I think that I've ever heard was Peter Drucker talking about all workers in knowledge work, and let's face it, accounting professionals are definitely types of knowledge workers, that they're all volunteers, right? And if they are volunteers, then we have to treat them like a not-for-profit, in so to speak, in that why do you go to work for a not-for-profit? Why do any of us do work for charity? Well, because we believe in the purpose, right? We believe that what we're doing is helping others to do better. And I think the beauty in what accounting professionals can do today is really begin to allow their customer businesses, their client businesses, to do and create and do and innovate and do all of the wonderful stuff that they should be doing, and allow us as the accounting professionals to worry about this financial stuff, and giving them insight at the same time. So it's really a multiple layer thing here, which is why I love the job that I do at Sage, because it's not just about helping accounting professionals, which this series is going to do, but it's really about even paying that forward down to your customers so that they can begin to transform and do the things that they love to do better.
I think that's very well said. And one of the things that all firms have to deal with is how are they going to package and price these services, because the old model of selling hours really doesn't work here. So that's a big part of our program is on first, what services are you going to offer? And then second, how are you going to package and price them? And third, who's going to really perform them? So sometimes it takes simplification in a complex world. And I think keeping your morale high within your firm and motivating people and having momentum. Too many people, particularly CPAs, tend to analyze the situation and maybe overanalyze. And I think if you're in movement here and you get started, it's like the train has already left the station. If you don't get on a car here pretty quickly, your chances of moving over to the right side of that graphic and being transformational become less as you go forward. So I think this is just a great depiction of Patton. He had 3 simple rules: a hot meal, clean socks, and plenty of ammo. He wanted to be on the offensive. I think the parallel here, I would say you're going to be a lot better off, more profitable, and be able to sustain into the future if you're on the offensive today rather than playing defense hoping you can switch to offense in the future. Thoughts on this, Ed?
Yeah, I like this notion of keeping it simple. So important, you know. And it's beyond just, you know, I guess the hot meal is everybody have a 10 key that, you know, that's out the window, or a good computer, right? It's well beyond that. It's what are we doing so that we can, and when I say we're talking about accounting professionals here, be at that forefront, to be on the offensive, to help bring out what's best in our customers, in our clients. And I think that's one of the things that's gotten lost in the years and years of compliance work, and that we're just trying to do this to make sure that all of the debits and credits net out to be equal. But it's now far beyond that. We have to be leaders of them in this transformation, using the digital tools that we have available.
Well, I think we're about at the end. Thomas, what questions do you have for us as we wrap this up?
Yes, we do have some interesting questions that have come in, and one of them would be, will the Sage Accounting Network Client Advisory Services program help me determine whether we're in position to take on new clients?
Absolutely. That's part of what this program is all about. And I will tell you, if this firm is like most out there, they're going to have to leave something behind in order to move into the future. That's just one of the basic rules out there. And it's very difficult to leave clients behind. So having a filtering system, having a way to target your future clients and what services you want to offer is a part of this program.
Absolutely. Another one, staff development is one of our largest challenges. How can the SAN Client Advisory Services program help with that?
Well, there's a whole module on talent. because the service levels dictate the type of skills needed. And while we have plenty of accounting skills, we don't have project management, marketing, sales, data analytics, just to give you an example of a few. And we talk about where you can find those skills, either full-time, part-time, and even touch on the gig economy.
Perfect. One last one that's come in is, I'm looking to make my practice more efficient and maximize resources. Will the SANCAS program help me do this?
The answer to that is also yes, in that we realize that you've got to be more efficient and effective. And we look at project management, we look at Lean Six Sigma, but most importantly, we match that up with the technology platform. Because I think if you just look at your processes without looking at the capabilities of technology, you may be misled, and we're really focusing on improving the client experience and the value we add to the client.
Fantastic. Well, keep submitting your questions going forward. We are going to have a webinar 2 and 3 coming up. And certainly appreciate your interaction with us today.